Good evening and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, set as we see it and frankly as well. 3,000
but it's the next iteration of an existing system.
But it's a design, it's not manufacturing anything.
I think there should be, there are restrictions. You have to be licensed to carry a weapon.
Addiction, and I think that if we took a more compassionate approach, we might find more of a solution.
Radical swing of the pendulum. Now we're, it's more liberal, more progressive, more.
It's time for us to honor those folks who, send comments to it.
And good evening and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, set as we see it and frankly as well, and happy holidays. That's what Paul would say.
No. I'm going to give you a big Merry Christmas to everybody back there.
You're backtracking.
I wish we had a couple of Christmas trees behind us, and
There's my Christmas cats.
And look, it's not that I have any ill will towards anybody who celebrates any other holiday or holy day at this time of year. All I'm saying is it's refreshing to be able to say Merry Christmas without feeling the heat from the politically correct people who decide what we can and cannot say, what we can and cannot think.
We're going to get into hypocrisy, in this show.
Hypocrisy?
Big time.
Oh,
yeah.
all right. I'm looking forward to that.
But we're going to talk about the winner. Yesterday was proclaimed, and all the fanfare, and everybody that tried to upset the will of the people, with the electors. What's ironic, talk about hypocrisy, is that those folks who believe in loose construction of the Constitution all of a sudden became strict constructionists.
Oh, right, yeah. They want to adapt it, modify it, change it, be progressive whenever it suits their needs. And as soon as it doesn't suit their needs anymore, like you said, what do you call them? Strict
constructionists, yeah.
Strict constructionists, right.
What's the irony of what took place? I mean, this is hilarious. They tried so much to get the electors to defect from Trump. Right. And guess what happened?
More defected from Clinton. 5-2, right?
It would have been far more, except that 3 of them, they weren't allowed to defect because the state law wouldn't permit it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Maine, Minnesota, and 2 in Colorado, actually 4.
So they kind of voted for Clinton in protest?
They didn't vote for Clinton. They were voting for Bernie Sanders and others, but they wouldn't in Maine, and they wouldn't allow them in Minnesota.
Right.
Yeah.
So they wanted to protest.
Yeah.
And really couldn't. So they said,
we're
voting for Clinton, but I'm holding my nose and doing it because I have no choice because of the law.
Yeah, well, so in effect, he actually ended up winning by a greater margin,
right.
Electoral margin, after all of the shenanigans, right? And ironically, the same thing happened in the recount. He won by more votes.
Right.
Listen, folks, I want to dispel something that...
You're going to talk about the popular vote?
That's exactly what I was going to get into. You're so wise. If you discount California...
He wins the popular vote, too.
By 2 million votes. Now, anybody tries to tell you that California margin was with certified voters, I will tell you that's not true. That there's millions of voters in California who are undocumented. Illegal. Shouldn't have voted.
Potentially.
Okay.
Potentially.
So, and if you take the broad swath, for example, in Detroit, there were 37 precincts, I believe, maybe a little off on that, in which the amount of people who voted far exceeded the amount of people who actually could vote. At the point, that's called fraud.
They had something similar to that in Philadelphia.
Also in Philadelphia.
4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
They said 103% of the vote turned out. Something like
and
that.
zero.
And 0 votes for Romney.
For Romney, right. So, if you factor in dead people who voted,
or people who doing it under an assumed name, or have registered without really being, without truly being citizens and having the right,
and felons, don't forget Terry McAuliffe allowed all the felons to vote in Virginia.
That's state rule.
Yes, but he put that they could vote in prison, the prisoners.
Right. No, I know. But that's
We're
not
talking
necessarily...
a couple 100,000 votes there,
That's not
partner.
necessarily in Philadelphia, though, right?
What was that?
I thought you were talking about Philadelphia.
No, I'm talking about Virginia, the state of
Just,
Virginia.
It's
Terry
all
McAuliffe.
over the place, right?
Right. So if you factor in all of these little nuances,
Right.
and none of them voted for Trump.
Well, and you know, it kind of speaks to the whole Democrat playbook, which is kind of identity politics. They're running around looking for a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit honest, a little bit not so honest. You know, they don't care how. It's a perpetual thing. It's a kind of a building blocks. You want to get. First of all, you got your base, right? You start with your base. You've got that, and then you identify groups that you can, you know, sell them a song and dance so that they'll buy into it. You know, whether it's the black vote, whether it's the LGBT community, whatever. They identify them and then turn them on the Republicans by virtue of making the Republicans look, feel, say. What they're saying and doing is, you know, ideally an anti-LGBT or an anti-black. You know, it's like the Republicans are bad people. They want to see you hang, or they want to see you dead, or they you know.
Who's the sore loser?
The sore loser.
Who's the sore loser here? Who's the one who said, "Oh, we must accept the will of the majority, whatever happens"?
Hillary Clinton was horrified at the fact that Donald Trump said he was going to wait and see how it played out before he decided.
Exactly.
Horrified she was.
And what is she doing now?
I guess she's living her own nightmare because what she's doing
She's
is...
blamed everybody.
Right.
You know, blame it on the Russians. The Russians did it.
Right.
Or Russia did it.
Right.
Can
we keep talking about the popular vote? I want to talk about that a little bit because
tell me about the popular vote.
Because you know, I hear enough people saying, "Oh, if it was the popular vote, then you know, then Clinton would have won." First of all, that wouldn't, you know, let's put aside anything about, you know, illegal voters in California and all that kind of stuff. Had the election, the rules of the election, the rules of engagement said that it's a popular vote determination, then both parties, both the Democrats and the Republicans, would not have kind of campaigned the way they did. They would have gone to, you know, Trump would have spent a lot of time in California, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, places where he had no chance of winning. He would have gone there and gotten votes. I think it would have been even worse. That's one thing. And the other thing is this business that somehow the Electoral College is somehow antiquated is a bunch of malarkey, because if they did go to a popular vote kind of approach, right, where, you know, it's a national thing.
Urban America would dominate.
Small states and rural areas would not have any say in the future of this country ever. And I think everybody is entitled to a say. One person, one vote needs to matter.
Later on, we're going to, in the hypocrisy section of our show, there's a great quote that I want to talk about democracy. You talk about one man, one vote, that's the way to fly. No, our founding fathers were wise enough to understand it to be the tyranny of the majority. And that's majority vote can be the tyranny. That's precisely what happened in Nazi Germany. The majority of folks there said, we don't like Jews.
In the first 2 years of Barack Obama's administration.
Well, the Republicans did not vote, not one, did not vote for Obamacare.
Right.
Okay. He ruled by executive order, and the world's on fire by virtue of, you just saw what happened in Turkey. Right. You just saw what happened in Berlin. Okay. And this is atypical of what's happened in the last 8 years. Because when I told the Russians, knock it off.
Cut it out, he said.
Cut it out.
And then he went golfing.
He went golfing with the things that took place in Turkey and in Berlin.
Right. You know, think about it though, Joe. If he didn't care after they cut off that poor journalist's head, remember, was it Pearl?
Oh God, yes.
He went golfing right after that.
God.
If he didn't care then, how much is he going to care with 2 weeks to go or 3 weeks, whatever it is, before he's done?
Well, I want you to let's get back to Russia, because they were the bad guys. And if you take a look, the Russian mafia got involved, obviously. If you watch Washington Post and the New York Times and MSNBC and all of these left-wingers, oh my God, Putin and the Russian mafia swayed the election. And meanwhile, Putin is saying, who, me? Who, me?
Right. Well,
What's that Russian word?
Niet.
Yeah, yet. Wasn't me. Wasn't me. And while we're on Russia, Paul, why don't you take a look at that sheet there, because, you know, it's fascinating. They have a fascinating history. And it'd be obligatory, or should be obligatory, that we here in the United States understand a little bit about their history. So, folks, here's a few interesting facts, after which, by the way, we got to give the answers to last week's geography bee.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So, there's interesting facts about Russia, and you tell me, Paul, what is it that you know about Russia that they don't know out there? What's that one fact, that top fact right there?
About the railway?
Yeah, what about it?
5,700 miles long.
Which happens to be the longest railway in the world.
I didn't even, is Russia that expanse that it can go from one end to the other is 5,700 miles?
More than that, actually. From Moscow to Vladivostok, you know, is actually, Moscow is inland a bit. So, yeah, it was 57, which is twice the length of the United States.
Right, because we're about
basically.
3,000, right?
Yeah. So, and also, this is a great one. Do you notice this one?
The 700-seat McDonald's?
The largest in the world.
Right.
Largest
Do
McDonald's.
you know Lynn has the only McDonald's that ever went out of business?
That's got something to do with Russia, huh?
Well, if we're talking about McDonald's.
Capitalism's alive and well in Russia. I'll tell you why. Because in Russia, folks, listen to this one. Moscow, the capital of Russia, has more billionaires than any other city in the world, Paul. Would you believe that, when they're supposed to be a socialist, communist country? More billionaires than any place. In fact, more than New York, which is second. They have 3 more billionaires than New York.
And I'll tell you that, you know, so you said that they're a socialist country, right? I would argue that the more billionaires you have, the least likely you are as a society to be a true capitalist society.
So you're saying a concentration of money to the elites.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's crony capitalism that's allowing them to get to accumulate their wealth. I mean, make no mistake about it, Vladimir Putin decides who's going to be wealthy, and I'll bet you he's one of those 74 too.
Of course he is. So they have 74 billionaires in Moscow. New York has 71 billionaires. So there's a lot in common there, isn't there?
You know, if not for Trump winning the election, they would have had another billionaire in New York in no time. Would have been Clinton, right?
Oh, they got quite of a billion now.
Right, but not a billionaire. So she would have been a billionaire before 4 years was up, don't you think?
Oh yeah, they would have had to lock up Fort Knox. They would have had to put the special forces to guard the goal. They would have been going out faster than you could shake a stick at. You know, please give me a break. And by the way, don't think that the FBI and other agencies didn't know this, because, you know, when they try, you know, Bill Clinton's out there copying that Comey did it. That's another excuse. Oh, the FBI did. You know, maybe they did. And maybe the reason why they did is because they realized that they couldn't make her president. Maybe they knew that this woman was so corrupt. And the Clinton Foundation, by the way, which is, that door hasn't been shut yet.
That's an interesting theory. I had never really thought about that, but I wouldn't be surprised either, because I'll tell you what, I mean, whether there's officially a law broken or not in here, you know, we could debate that till the end of time, I think. But the fact is that there was a quid pro quo kind of. There's the foundation, there's the State Department, and there's the Clinton family business, and the 3 of them were interrelated. And she was very successful at making all 3 of them work together while she was the secretary, with a possibility of becoming the president. Now that she's not the president, apparently nobody's interested in donating to the foundation anymore. So what does that tell you?
They're saving money.
There's a 37% reduction in contributions to the Clinton Foundation.
We'll drive to zero shortly. In Russia, don't ever shake hands under the doorway. Never.
You don't shake hands under a doorway?
Oh, no. That's a very superstitious. Those are fighting. That's a fighting situation. It's a bad omen that's going to lead to an argument. Okay? So you don't do that. Now, since we're on Russia and the Clinton Foundation, you want to put it all together, Paul? And Podesta? Now, I have heard about how Donald Trump was in cahoots with Putin. Now, folks, think about this. Putin could push Pajama Boy all around, right? The golfer?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Barack Obama.
Yeah.
No, Barry
Push him-
Soetoro.
Right, you can push him around.
And he
Why
did,
does
and
he
he
want
did
to
for a
put?
year.
Why would Putin want to put an alpha male into the United States. That'd be that's against his best interest.
That's one very clear reason why he wouldn't be shooting for that. I mean, trying to foul up our election cycle, maybe, but trying to get Trump in, I don't think so.
That's the last thing he wants.
Right. The other thing is, they talk about how, Trump is connected to Putin and Bannon is connected to Putin. How about what's going on the liberal side? I mean, Hillary Clinton, as a Secretary of the State, allowed for the sale of 20% of the U.S. government's uranium stockpile to Russia.
Our capacity to produce uranium, which is unique to only a few countries, she, through a Canadian firm, shell firm, sold 20% of our, Russia has 20% ownership of our uranium supply.
Right.
Nobody talks about that, do they?
But
by the way,
they're worried about Bannon.
Do you know they got $151 million into the Clinton Foundation as a consequence of that little deal?
Yeah.
Want to talk about a quid pro quo?
Right.
What about John Podesta and his brother, who have a consulting firm that makes Paul Manafort look like a choir boy?
See, that doesn't matter because he's a Democrat.
I understand that. But the hypocrisy is so deep, it's incredible. Now, hypocrisy, if we can throw up that little thing, is claiming to have, listen to this one, Paul, claiming to have moral standards to which one's actions do not conform.
Right, yeah. And the Democrats, the Clinton team, the Obamas have been riddled with hypocrisy as long as I've been paying attention to them. I mean, if you just think about the things that come out of Barack Obama's mouth, and his wife for that matter, on the one hand saying A, and then going back and just doing whatever.
They think they had a wonderful, successful presidency, Paul.
Right.
He was congratulating himself. He was saying it was the greatest 8 years in the history of the United States of America. Meanwhile, try to convince anybody with an IQ above, to quote Bill Clinton, that has an IQ above single digits. Right?
Right. Well, I just, some of the things that happened during the Obama administration really, drive me crazy. And I often speak about this. There's two different kinds of politicians. There's the one who gets in it for what it can do, what it will do for him or her, and the other one gets into it what they can give back to society. And I think there truly are both types of politician. And Barack Obama spent his entire 8 years thinking everything out politically. It was all about what was in his best interest.
He was an ideologue, Paul. Everything he did was based on ideology.
But he did everything on a political kind of spin. I mean, he took all his advice from the West Wing, which is where the political implications are always the first thing that they consider.
That's right.
So my theory is good policy makes good politics. So if you do the right thing by the country, it will bear out in the end. If you feel that you have to figure out how to jam something in so that it looks good politically, even though it isn't, is an entirely different point of view of that.
Paul, he wanted to, and he effectively transformed American social, political, and economic society. We are far more divided today racially and by different subgroups than ever.
Talk about a hypocrite. I mean, we're far more divided. And what does he say? He says we need to have a conversation about race, is what he said in his interview on NPR or something the other day. We have to have a conversation about race. What about for the past 8 years?
Paul, we have two major universities, and there'll be more, that have the curriculum is the problem of whiteness.
The problem of whiteness.
Don't laugh at this. This is real. These are courses. They're saying that white people have to recognize the fact that they're exploiters and that they have to help end their
right. That's that whole thing about white privilege.
Supremacy.
White privilege.
Yeah, and white privilege, white supremacy. I mean, this is how. Did you ever hear this conversation 8 years ago?
No.
No. And were people moving forward in the middle class in all ethnic groups, in all subracial groups?
Right.
Of course they were. André Gide, French philosopher, existentialist. The true hypocrite is the one who ceases to perceive his deception, the one who lies with sincerity. Sound familiar?
It's Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
Imagine lying with sincerity. It depends on what the meaning of is.
Lying with sincerity, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that the greatest? They so much believe in themselves that they can't recognize truth if it hit them in the face.
Right.
And now, one of my favorite boys, Teddy, by the way, it's a lot like Donald Trump, but Teddy Roosevelt. There's a lot of similarities here. Avoid the base hypocrisy of condemning in one man what you pass over in silence when committed by another.
And you know who's a classic example of that? Who's the minority leader in the, on the Benghazi committee there? The black fellow.
Cummings. Elijah Cummings.
Elijah Cummings. It doesn't matter. The facts be damned. He just supports the Democrat no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what.
Without question.
With bold-faced lies. It's like, how do they do that? How do they, in good conscience, say these things? And I think that's what it's right here. It says, avoid the base hypocrisy of condemning in one man what you pass over in silence when committed by another. So, in other words, they, when the IRS guy comes marching up and they start, saying, hey, you did this, you did that, and he denies it, and then Cummings comes up and says, oh, he didn't do anything wrong. You guys, this is all political. And then so now you got a Republican up there and Elijah Cummings, or if Elijah Cummings was in charge, he would be basically, and if it was the same set of facts, he would be trashing the guy.
Paul, do you recall about everybody trying to say that Donald Trump is going to be a fascist and we're going to have
still saying
violence? Yeah, violence and all this stuff.
It's only coming from the left.
Where was the violence coming from?
The left, all the time.
The violence that you saw at his rallies was fabricated by activists from the Democratic Party. In fact, one of them...
They were hired.
His wife is a congresswoman, and he went to visit Obama about 300 times during his election, and he had to resign, remember? Because he was hiring people $1,500 to go whack women intentionally.
And that, by the way, was never actually talked about in the
Of course not.
media.
The mainstream media didn't want to talk about that.
They pretended it didn't happen.
Of course, all the violence that they said purported to be taking place in the Trump campaign didn't. Where's all the violence on this recount? Where's all the violence on the electors? Where'd it come from?
All from the left.
Who funded all of it?
George Soros.
And by the way, who is Van Jones? There used to be in
Obama's administration.
Yeah, the jobs are. But he once upon a time, before Glenn Beck, before Glenn Beck somehow got bitten on the neck by who knows what. Yeah, Van Jones. He exposed Van Jones for being what he was. Now all of a sudden, Van Jones is his buddy. I don't know what's happening there, but Van Jones is the guy that tried to negotiate along with Podesta this phony Hamilton elector scheme, right. And the whole purpose of it is try to eviscerate Trump before he gets started. Now they're complaining.
Add doubt to the equation.
Of course. Now they're complaining about Ivanka, who happens to be the president's daughter, and she's not the only one that's had influence. Forget about Harry Truman, his daughter. He was ready to have a fist fight with somebody who criticized his daughter. She was in the White House, and there were a couple. I think Monroe or Madison's wife was.
So as far as I can tell, the only time having a family member involved in your politics matters is if you're a Republican. As far as I can tell, that's the only time it matters. Is Ivanka Trump an accomplished woman? She is.
Then what is wrong with her giving advice to her father, and on top of it, being in there? She's perfectly capable.
So on two levels, I agree with you. First of all, she's certainly an accomplished individual, right?
Right.
Secondly, who do you think Donald Trump can trust more than his daughter?
His own daughter, his own sons. And by the way, they give him a perspective that he can't get from others. Right. Very important. Right. Okay. Now,
and by the way, he's not inclined to, push off everybody else. And by the way, that's what Obama would do. Obama didn't want to hear anybody that disagreed with him.
Obama surrounded himself with Valerie Jarrett, Susan Rice, Samantha Powers, and I go on and on and on, and Michelle.
People that disagreed with him weren't really allowed to disagree.
There was absence of an alpha male in that whole crew.
Right. Plus, there was no disagreement.
No, there wasn't. No.
Everybody was afraid to disagree with Obama, so he basically...
Well, no one says to you, Obama had a fixation with Iran, correct?
I would say he did, yeah.
All right. But nobody will tell you that Valerie
Valerie
Jarrett
Jarrett
was born and grew up in Iran.
Right.
Nobody wants to tell you that. You know, Hillary Clinton's #1 consigliere, who, by the way, they're throwing darts at her now, Huma Ahmadin.
Right.
They never researched her.
Yes.
Her mother, as we speak, is in Saudi Arabia with her brothers, printing a periodical that is pro-brotherhood, Arab Brotherhood,
and hugely-
Sharia law,
And hugely anti-Western.
and anti-Western, okay?
Yep.
And she was the editor of that particular periodical before she hooked up with...
And at the same time is as close to Hillary Clinton as anybody is. Or
So
at least
if
was.
if you're wondering what Hillary Clinton's love affair with the Arab Brotherhood was concerned, well, take a peek with who she had around her.
Right.
But they didn't write these. This is what really scalds me. Now, I love this. You remember Mad Magazine?
I sure do. What me worry?
Didn't you love
Alfred
it?
E. Newman.
Yeah, wasn't it great?
Yep.
Remember Spy versus Spy?
Yep.
Well, under our hypocrisy, we got this, the Spy versus Spy. You know, they're all shaking hands. One's got black and the other guy's white. The good guy and the bad guy. What do they both have? One's got a bomb and the other one's got dynamite, right? So talk about hypocrisy. Oh, we're going to do friendship. One's ready to blow it. They're ready to blow each other up. All right? And right underneath that, is that up, Dave? And right underneath that is the quote that I was talking about from Malcolm X. Why doesn't anybody talk about this? Democracy is hypocrisy.
And what do you think he means by that?
Well, you tell me what you think.
I mean, it looks like a big D democracy, so he's implying that the system of government in the United States is, in its very
He
essence...
says a black man doesn't have a chance within this great thing called a democracy, right? If you happen to be not from the right tribe, I mean, that's what he's saying, in effect, right?
And you know what? He's not wrong in one respect.
Exactly, because you know what? We're not a democracy, thank you very much.
Well, that too, but my point is that whether, color of your skin is obviously a significant challenge for people, and it always has been, and it's gotten better, but there's a long way to go, and I won't deny that. But the real divider between who's in charge and who's subservient is political power, social order, money, and beauty. Those are the things that are deciding who's in charge.
What were we heralding? What was one of our mantras for a long time about the control factor? An organized minority will always control a disorganized majority.
Right.
He's
By the way, the Trump support was finally an organized majority.
Finally. Right.
Finally.
Now, if you take a look at the way things are, Bill Clinton had the stones, and it really ticks me off, to attribute, he said, this is what he gave to Trump. He said Trump had the ability, had a knack of capturing the angry white man's vote, right? Well, let me ask you this. Did 100% of the angry white men vote for Trump?
No.
No. Did nearly 100% of the non-angry blacks vote for Trump?
Yes.
Voted against Trump.
Yes.
92% voted against Trump. Hispanics voted in big, big numbers against Trump. Why? Why is there such a disparity there and nobody talks about it? And yet, God forbid that the majority...
Because the Democrats have convinced them that what they're doing is good for them. And
is there something bad about white men, which you happen to be one, Paul, and I think I am? Is there something wrong with us or what?
Nothing wrong with me. I mean,
Have you been around exploiting people lately? Huh? Are you trying to...
Yeah, I do it all day, every day. I mean, that's
you run
just
around with a white cape or something like that, they're going to tell you you do, Paul.
Right. Well, the bigger thing is not what I do today, it's what my forefathers were doing. That's what this
Your
is all.
forefathers were grinding it out in Greece and in Ireland, Paul. I hate to tell you.
In my case, that's true.
Okay, then. So, I mean, you want to talk about my forefathers? They were picking olives in Sicily.
Do you know an olive is a fruit?
It is a fruit.
I didn't know that.
I'm getting a little fruity myself.
I found that out the other day. My 8-year-old great nephew told me that. And he's right.
That's an interesting tidbit. Olives are a fruit.
Because it has a,
And by the way-
because it has a seed.
We must let our audience know the answers to our geography bee. So I'll ask you, Paul, what's the only Great Lake that's entirely within the territory of the United States?
Michigan.
Brilliant. You are brilliant, you know that. Number 2, which state has the shortest coastline? Boom, 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 boom.
Delaware.
Not bad. Think about Concord as the capital.
New Hampshire?
Yeah, New Hampshire. It's only 15 miles.
Oh, that's because of Maine kind of cuts it off.
Exactly, very good. So New Hampshire has the shortest coastline. What was the other one? The other one was the largest state east of the Mississippi. That's a little tricky.
The largest state.
Inland area.
It's either Florida or Georgia.
Very good.
Which one is it?
Georgia. It's not Florida, Michigan or Georgia. But very good that you came up with Georgia. Very, very good. What's the southernmost state, Paul?
I don't know. Is it Hawaii?
Ooh, you got a lot of them right, huh? Is that 5? Did I miss one?
I don't know.
Is that all there is?
So Georgia's the largest by land mass east of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
New Hampshire's got the shortest coastline.
And there's a state that borders only one other state. That's a tricky one, huh?
A state that borders
Only one other state. Doesn't have to have much of a highway patrol, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Border security.
I don't know. But
Well, think about this. They want to keep all of the lobsters out of this state that has a short coastline.
Maine?
Maine's the only state that has borders New
Do-
Hampshire,
do-
one other state, that's all.
You know what I always found interesting, and this is
Right.
kind of on the same topic, is before they broke New England into 6 states, and it was, New England was just one big state, the only border it had with the rest of the colonies was what?
The only border, which,
That the colony of New England it only had one border within the colonies, the 13
probably
colonies.
New York.
Yeah, and it was by design. New York set it up so that you couldn't do any business with New York, outside
With
of New
New
York.
England?
You have to go through New York to get there, so they would,
Crony capitalism back then, tariff systems back then, huh? Well, Maine was part of Massachusetts. It was always part of It became an independent state in 1820 when, I believe it was 1820, what they
So
call the Missouri-
Massachusetts was really the thing that we now refer to as New England, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that Maine was part of Massachusetts.
But so was New Hampshire and Vermont, no?
No.
They weren't?
No.
Oh.
Actually, I believe Vermont was part of New York, but I may be wrong on that one. Vermont's not one of the original 13 colonies.
Right.
So I believe it was the 14th, that or Ohio, I get confused. But folks out there, you can help me on this. But Massachusetts, Maine became a state in order to keep the balance between slave and free states. Because when they brought Missouri into the Union, I think that was in 1820.
So that was a way of increasing the number of votes
Okay.
on the other side of the argument. Yeah.
That was the great compromise. Clay, I think, Senator Clay. I mean, our history is replete with all types of deals being cut all over the place.
Right.
So if you folks get all nerved up about stuff, you shouldn't. There's one thing I know about this administration, incoming administration. It has clarity.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, it has clarity.
Right.
And the folks that they have put in to the
Are clearly going to
are
do.
they? This is probably the most talented group
Right.
of
You know,
cabinet members.
And I, for folks at home, especially those who are freaking out that they, all of the liberal policies are going to get thrown out the window, and that means that people are going to be dying, and the water's going to become dirty, and our air's going to become dirty. Don't worry too much about that. That's kind of, I think, a lot of malarkey that's delivered from the left, and I think. A term that George Bush used, which was the compassionate conservative, will truly materialize under a Trump administration. He's going to be focused on doing conservative things, but when he starts to realize the full magnitude of his decision making, I think you'll see him being compassionate and making sure that people don't get hurt by it.
Passionate conservatism that gives people things can be counterproductive, Paul.
I'm not saying give people things.
No, but I understand it.
Right.
But if the definition of you know,
Because even Ronald Reagan, as much of a conservative as he was, he was concerned when you're taking care of whatever I don't know how many people there were back in his administration, but there's 320 million people in this country, right? And if you think about the decision making, it's going to affect, you know, essentially everybody, some more than others, and so forth. And you have to be really mindful of those things. You know, it's like, I mean, I travel in, you know, the nonprofit world, and they're all freaking out because they think that Medicaid is going to become, you know, what do they call it, block granted, and then they're going to cut.
They're freaking out because their well-being is threatened. They're little fiefdoms.
Well, I agree with that, but at the same time, you know, there's, you know, if you only get so much money, you know, and you're right, it cuts into their fiefdom, if you will, but their argument is always going to be that it's going to adversely impact the individuals. And my theory, and this is what I've been working on for my entire 7+ years at GLIS, is we need to figure out a way to do things better, more effectively, and at a lower price, so that we can actually deliver the promise that the social safety net brings.
Paul, let me ask you, would you define Lynn, the profile of a Lynnite generally now? I don't want to be, that Lynn is probably a challenged social economic city,
Yep.
population, you know, and yet,
Generally lower income.
yeah.
Yep.
And yet when I go to all the schools, I have not seen a kid yet without an iPhone or a smartphone. Not a one.
My 11-year-old great nephew is
So-
getting one for Christmas. He's 11.
Okay? So this thing called poverty or hardship is relative. Is there anybody truly in the United States going without food? Truly.
No.
Exactly.
And they come up with a new term now. They call it food insecurity. Even though you have it, you don't know where your next
Well,
meal's
they can come up with all the terms they want to
I
come up with
know,
to
I know.
justify whatever they want to justify. The point being is, are there any folks that you know that don't have a flat screen TV?
No, or air conditioning, or a car.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So on and on it goes. So materially, America's doing quite well.
Right.
The point is that you can't have it to such a point. It does well because there's producers to create wealth so that we're able to do these, to be compassionate. What Donald Trump is proposing is he's saying that the reservoir, that Lynn Reservoir, it's like it was when you and I were playing golf and all I saw looked like the moon because it was barren,
Craters,
right?
right, yeah.
Okay. When it gets to that point, everybody is going to die of thirst. What he's saying is we have to keep pumping water into that reservoir. Keep pumping it in, Paul. Doesn't matter if it's full, because if nothing's coming in after you drain it,
Right.
that's the end of the ballgame. You have to create wealth. He says he wants America to be wealthy again. That makes sense to me. I'm going to build a wall. You know why he's going to build a wall, Paul? Because that's American concrete with American steel, with American workers building the wall, and that stimulates the economy. If you do infrastructure as proposed, roads, highways, tunnels, all of that stuff, a jacked up WTPA program from the 30s on steroids, that's a good thing at this point in time, isn't it?
Yep.
All of the infrastructure that was put aside supposedly on the stimulus package of $1 trillion when Obama came to office, not a nickel of it went anywhere.
Right.
Okay?
And
What
then
it did was it subsidized Solyndra, it subsidized all these fancy...
It also subsidized states and local governments so,
Exactly.
that they wouldn't have to
to
go
cut-
without.
so their budgets didn't get cut, and the rest of it, social service, so on and on it goes. The allocation of funds was sinful, what took place. That's about to change.
Right.
Look it. Did you ever hear of a president in your lifetime that says, oh, by the way, I don't want a $4.2 billion airplane? Have you ever heard anyone say that? Do you ever hear one say against the military, oh, by the way, that $125 billion that you spent badly, I don't like your F-35 program. It's not going to happen. I mean, that takes some courage to say those types of things, doesn't it?
Especially when you have like right here in Lynn, the F-35s are built at the GE.
Yeah.
It means jobs when that program gets cut.
Paul, last week we talked about a project that was happening, and a lot of you folks must understand this. This, it's said to be a noble thing to build housing for affordability, to help out people, give an opportunity. All good and well, financed by the AFL-CIO. The reason why they finance is because they know they can't lose because of all the subsidies that are placed onto those buildings. That's got to be revisited, Paul.
Right.
These are the types of things that Donald Trump is talking about that, yes, terrifies the nonprofits.
Right. There is, and I can't specifically identify it, but I'm sure that there is a, if you look at it closely, you'll see that the interests of the AFL-CIO are make out a lot better than you would expect for something that was intended to develop housing for less fortunate.
Paul, the head of the AFL-CIO was backing a fella from Minnesota to be DNC chair named Ellison, okay, who is converted to Islam, which is no big thing, but he's anti-Semitic. He is on record as being anti-Semitic. He's a follower of Louis Farrakhan.
Right.
Now, here you have the AFL-CIO throwing its weight behind, along with Elizabeth Warren, by the way, and Bernie Sanders, throwing their weight behind an individual who is anti-Semitic and, frankly, anti-white. Because he wanted to take 3 or 4 states
and make them an all-black.
All black.
Yeah.
Right. Get rid of, we're all going to move there. That's like Liberian revert. I mean, give me a break. I mean, talk about things in honest terms, and maybe we can get somewhere.
Right.
Maybe we can find some common ground, right?
That's the
Because
thing that bothers me the most is because they're not truthful about what their intentions are. They're always trying to manipulate people into going in a certain direction with a false set of facts.
Paul, that color, which trumps everything, is green.
Yep.
And that's the end of it. So nobody has a problem dealing with somebody that has the wherewithals to brush their teeth, comb their hair, be polite.
Right.
Then it's irrelevant whether you came from Greece or Ireland or Somalia or wherever, right?
Right.
And I mean, look at what happened in Turkey. If that isn't instructive, here's a fellow who is a policeman, mind you, and I believe he was a refugee from? Oh, no, I guess not. He was Turkish, but
Right. Well, he was in the police department. He must have been.
yeah. And he blows away the ambassador in order to create a rift between Turkey, Syria, Iran, and Russia, right? Then you have in Germany someone who they took in as a refugee from Pakistan. Out of the goodness of their heart, come on, you have it tough to come on. We'll take care of you here in Germany. And he said, okay, thank you very much. Gets a truck and he blows away a whole bunch of drives into it. What kind of crazy stuff is this?
Oh, I know it. I just need to correct the record because news came out this afternoon that they let that guy go. It wasn't. He isn't. They don't believe he's the guy.
No, but the one you're talking about, yeah, but they have their what do they call it? APD. What's that thing?
All points bulletin.
Yeah, and
Be on the lookout.
Yeah, they're pretty sure it was this guy from Pakistan. Okay, but I mean the point of the matter is, so you have someone who came out immediately while the other guy's golfing, who's still president, came out immediately and said, this does not stand. Right. They're out to kill Christians, and strong, powerful statement.
Right. Well, and
and it will be backed up.
I try not to be a conspiracy theorist, but an hour after that guy was shot, another Russian diplomat was shot in Russia. Where they found him dead with a bullet wound to the head, like within an hour of that happening. So I actually think that If there's a
Was
conspiracy,
that
it
diplomat a Russian or was he a
was
Turkish?
a Russian.
Was shot in Russia? So what's your theory?
My theory is that there's somebody who's trying to rile up the region and get it ratcheted up, an escalation in tensions. I don't know who and I don't know why, but there's an escalation in tensions being
Let me ask you.
done intentionally is my point.
See, I think Trump has got the right idea to take care of the problem in Europe and also here in the United States by creating safe zones in the area.
Right, so you don't have to, by the way, the people in Syria would prefer that probably to be shipped all over the world.
There are those who suggest that if you're not invited in to do it, and we may cross swords with the Russians in so doing, I think they can work that out. But the point of the matter is they could always use Jordan or a friendly area in the region in which to put the safe zone, right?
But and I would agree with that. But let me ask you about Jordan and those other, Gulf states. Are they as willing to take on refugees as we are?
Sure, if they have a safe zone, it's temporary.
No, but are they currently taking in Syrian?
They're trying, yeah.
Because I thought that they weren't. I thought
I think they are. I think Jordan is
Qatar,
helpful, but
maybe Jordan is, but Qatar and Saudi Arabia are
well,
not.
yeah, he's. By the way, he's also saying that the problem is from the region, and that region is wealthy. Then those folks should be paying the freight for this. We'll provide the arm, we'll provide the strength, but you got to pay us. And it's the same thing with NATO. Of course, you should revisit NATO. Circumstances have changed radically since the end of World War II.
And everybody's always afraid to touch anything that's established.
And he's right about the United Nations. The United Nations does not have the United States' best interest in hand. Every single time that there was a problem, Obama ran to the United Nations. Always ran to the United Nations, right?
That was to get around Congress.
Yeah. And Trump is saying, the heck with the United Nations. What's his thing? America first. Paul, is there something wrong with that?
No, I don't think so.
Is it kind of refreshing?
Yeah, this whole thing about the refugees and the open borders and all that kind of stuff. I'm amazed because it's the same people that are supporting the open borders are the ones who are saying we don't have enough money to take care of our own.
The ones supporting the open borders are Zuckerberg, whatever his name is, from Facebook. And
no, but let's just take somebody who is traditionally a Democrat, liberal, progressive type of person, right? They are espousing the idea of, keeping the borders open. They don't want to build a wall. They don't want to do all these things. Hillary Clinton types, her base or whatever. And if you think about it, these are the same people who are big on, domestic spending and social programs and so forth. So if you have this attitude where you want to be about social programs and taking care of the people in our country, and you bring in all these extra people, those extra people that are coming in cut into the resources that you have for the people that are already here that need help.
Precisely.
And to me, it's crazy that the people say, yeah, but we have plenty of money, so no big deal when we have $20 trillion in debt, and
$20 trillion in debt, and a whole bunch of it we owe to Japan, by the way, more than China. People don't realize that. Speaking of which, there was a president that everybody vilified, who, when he had a circumstance against John F. Kennedy, did the noble thing and didn't challenge. Didn't want to rip the country.
Richard Nixon.
He had all the reason in the world to challenge. Didn't do it.
Because of Texas and Chicago, right?
Yeah, and others. Ohio was in that mix too. But the point is that he did not challenge when he could have. He had every right to. He understood it. He also did something quite unique. He opened up dialogue with China. And the reason why he did it, it's been perverted since, was to offset the power of the Soviet Union.
Right.
Okay? He understood geopolitics. Trump has recognized that dynamic and that scale has shifted. And that if we make an alliance with the Russians,
we
offset the power and the rise of China. So moving toward Putin, moving toward an alliance with Russia makes sense. Now, folks, Franklin Delano Roosevelt made an alliance with the devil, otherwise known as Stalin, in order to defeat Nazi Germany, right?
Right.
He also made a deal with Chiang Kai-shek, the alleged nationalist. He was no bargain either, in order to defeat the Japanese.
Right.
We have to make deals with people that we may not like, but it's to our best interest. Nixon recognized that our best interest in the United States was to stop the power or to contain the power of the Soviet Union by aligning with China.
Right.
Now it has to be the other way around. So, I mean, we need folks that understand geopolitics. And certainly, no one in the Obama administration had a clue. Not a clue.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, you have competent people. The guy from ExxonMobil, you got to go with the oilers, and the oil is not necessarily in friendly hands.
Right.
You have to negotiate with those folks, which benefits us, by the way. ExxonMobil helps you and me, Paul. The lights are on, the cameras are rolling because of that.
Right.
That's power. This guy knows how to make deals. Guess who else knows how to make deals? Trump knows how to make deals. Ivanka knows how to make deals. Donald Jr. knows how to make deals. Mad Dog knows the region. Kelly, he's got people in there that know what they're doing. The CIA guy graduated #1 in his class from West Point.
Right.
Pompeo, and he's an attorney from Harvard.
Right, and you don't need to look any further than the two Secretary of States under the Obama administration. It was a political hack named Hillary Clinton and a political hack named John Kerry.
One's worse than the other. I mean, sailboat.
Yeah. What do they have that makes them qualified to do that? What, that they were senators? Is that what makes them qualified? Or that she was a first lady? Is that what makes her qualified to be the diplomat of the world?
That's such a salient point that should be underlined, exclaimed.
Right.
And it's that simple. So I'm hoping that you folks out there, and there's some sanity in the United States. Listen, I voted for Trump in Massachusetts, realizing that my vote was useless, right? But I took the time to do it because I knew what it was going to be. The point that you were making. A lot of people in California say, why the hell vote? My vote's not going to count. If he had campaigned there, you think that he would have lost California by 4 million votes?
No, he might have actually won.
So the point is that all of this phony baloney about popular vote is just that. It's hot air. The ground rules were by state. That's to protect, because we're a republic, Paul, and a republic protects the interest of the minority. Thank you very much. We don't want New York and LA and San Fran to tell the rest of us what we're supposed to do. They've done a lousy job of it thus far. Right. So hasn't the Washington Post, and so hasn't the New York Times. Paul, we got about a minute. Give me your predict. Well, let me put it this way. Christmas is coming forward.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas. And next week we're going to do a show, and we're going to talk about everything that happened.
Yeah, the year in review. Wouldn't that be something, huh?
Yeah.
And you're going to put together a lesson plan for us?
I hope.
Yeah.
Maybe I will. Maybe I won't.
I'm looking forward to that. This should be fun.
So anyway, what are you going to be doing for Christmas?
Just same old thing. Just nice and quiet at home. Taking a few days off. Recharge the batteries a little bit. How about you?
A student asked me if I believed in Santa Claus, and I said to him, absolutely. And anybody that tells a little kid there is no Santa Claus, that is the worst thing you could ever do. Dreams and thoughts. This is a beautiful season. Be happy. By the way, did you know, we said this last week, contrary to popular belief, the holiday season is a season of joy in which there is low stress and the lowest amount of death and suicide. Would you
really?
Yeah.
Even though everybody's stressing about,
they think about it,
Christmas and shopping and gift for this one and that one. In fact, I got this.
On a happy note, let's look in the camera, both of us, and what we're going to say? Merry Christmas.